We are now in the 20th century. Looking at what's been happening around the world, you probably are aware that the two world wars and all that is reflected in this post-Victorian period. The important poets, of course, are Eliot and Pound and Wallace, and of course Ted Hughes, his wife Sylvia Plath, etc. Ted Hughes, 1930 to 1998, Poet Laureate till his death, Order of Merit, and ever so many awards. What do we remember him for? Most of us probably know his crow poems. We know his Lupercal. And after his death, posthumously, Letters of Ted Hughes was also published. Interestingly, his wife too was a poet, Sylvia Plath. We will look at the poem The Laburnum Top today. The laburnum top is silent, quite still in the afternoon yellow September sunlight. A few leaves yellowing, all its seeds fallen till the goldfinch comes. With a twitching chirrup, a suddenness, a settlement at a branch end. Then, sleek as a lizard and alert and abrupt, she enters the thickness, and a machine starts up of chatterings and of tremor of wings and trillings. The whole tree trembles and thrills. It is the engine of her family. She stokes it full, then flirts out to a branch end, showing her barred face identity mask. Then with eerie, delicate whistle, chirrup whisperings, she launches away towards the infinite, and the laburnum subsides to empty. Did you notice how the poem begins with a kind of silence and again ends with silence? The laburnum tree, many of us living in India may not be familiar with that tree, but let me tell you, it is our own Amalthas. All of us know the Amalthas tree, so common in so many parts of our country. So the poem begins with a description of the tree, which is absolutely quiet. What season is it? I'm sure you noticed it is the yellow September sunlight. So autumn, remember, in many parts of the world. And then it is afternoon. How is the scene being described? First, just of the tree, which is quiet, which is silent, which is at peace with itself probably. And then suddenly, out of somewhere, comes a goldfinch. Have you heard of this bird? It's a small bird, but it comes, and the moment it settles on the tree, it seems as if everything is lit up. It seems as if everything comes to life, and she enters the thickness, sits at a branch, starts chirping. You know the sound of the birds, we use different words to describe it. It could be trilling, it could be chirping, cooing, and so on. So the bird begins to do that, and it seems as if the entire tree has come to life. The whole tree trembles and thrills. It is the engine of her family. She's not happy sitting quiet there, the goldfinch. She comes. And the poet uses a very, very strange comparison when he says her coming in is as sleek as a lizard. To me, the bird and the lizard are poles apart. But I don't know. The poet seems to think the way she comes in probably as quietly like a sleek lizard. She sits there on the branch, she coos, a lot of chirping goes on, and then what does she do? Just as suddenly as she had come in there, she flies away with eerie, delicate whistle, chirrup, whisperings. She launches away. And where does she go? Towards the infinite. Some of you might like to say infinite, but I don't know. I believe in saying infinite. And then what happens to the tree? The laburnum tree subsides once again to its own quiet self. The emptiness that comes in. Can you see a kind of synergy between the tree and the bird? Probably the poet is suggesting that it is so for human beings also. We need each other. We need that synergy. Every poem that we are looking at, you would have noticed that there are various figures of speech. Some very common probably, and some not so common. When we look at this poem, The Laburnum Top, you would have noticed that the sound is as important as the sense. And that is why I believe you must read poetry aloud to get the full effect. So you would have noticed that there is a lot of alliteration. What is alliteration? We have already talked about it, where the same sound is repeated. I'm not going to give you the examples. I'm sure you would love to look at it and see what the examples are. The metaphor, again, more difficult to understand probably than the simile, but similar in many ways because there is a comparison. And therefore, the tree becomes, right, a metaphor for life probably. There is also the use of personification. And what is personification? When human characteristics, features are given to something which is inanimate. Okay? So the tree here is almost treated like a human being in terms of the quietness that he talks about, the silence that he talks about, and how it subsides, he says, to emptiness. So you have the personification. So what do we have here? Again, I'm reminding you that you must read the poem aloud in order to get the feeling of what music poetry can have. The rhyme scheme is not a very obvious rhyme scheme. In fact, Ted Hughes did not believe in that kind of traditional poetry. So there is really no rhyme scheme. And when you look at the poem, if you are able to get a copy of the poem and look at it, you would notice that there are no verses as we understand them. I cannot talk of a 4-line stanza or a 3-line stanza. It all seems to be a kind of a continuous speaking, maybe, if you please, that you notice in this poem. That is also interesting. But remember, no rhyme scheme, but certainly a rhythm, an internal rhythm, which makes the poem so beautiful. When we complete a poem, when we read a poem, when we appreciate it and understand it, there seems to be as if we need an ignition to go on. So what shall I conclude with today? Let me talk about other poems on trees. Look at Birches by Robert Frost. Look at A Poison Tree by Blake. Look at Casuarina Tree by our own Duck. And Sylvia Plath's Under Winter Trees. Read them, enjoy them. There's a world of poetry waiting for you.